Somewhere on China's coast, a refinery engineer watches crude oil flow across his control screens. The oil is cheap, heavy, and officially just a bitumen blend. On Chinese state media, it's called diversified energy imports. But if you follow that barrel backwards, it runs through Venezuela's sanctioned oil trade, tankers that disappear in the middle of the ocean, and a quiet office in Washington trying to stop this trade. For people in China, this is invisible. For people in America, it's sanctions. In between is a gray economy connecting Caracas, Beijing, and your gas pump. Let's follow one barrel along that route. OFAC, the quiet gatekeeper. In Washington, there's a small office most Americans never think about. The Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC. OFAC doesn't send soldiers. It sends instructions to banks and companies that basically say, if you deal with this sanctioned company, ship, or cargo, you might lose access to the US dollar system. Losing dollar access is like an American business being banned from using electricity. You can try to survive, but everything becomes much harder. When OFAC sanctions Venezuela's state oil company, PDVSA, it's not a naval blockade. It's like freezing PDVSA's access to key payment channels. Suddenly, every cargo of Venezuelan oil is a legal minefield. Who owns the ship? Who insures it? Is payment in dollars? If the answers are wrong, OFAC can hit companies with huge fines or blacklist entire tankers. On paper, that should scare off buyers. In reality, it just pushes the barrels into the shadows. And somewhere on China's coast, that same refinery engineer just sees a new heavy blend scheduled to arrive next week. China's role. Even under sanctions, Venezuela still exports hundreds of thousands of barrels every day. According to Reuters reporting, China has become one of the main destinations, not always directly, but through layers of middlemen and creative paperwork. For Chinese refiners, the math is simple. Heavy crude at a discount. An energy-hungry economy equals a deal that's hard to refuse. Inside China, this doesn't show up as Venezuelan oil. You see state media talking about diversifying energy imports, import charts showing more heavy blends, fuel prices that stay more stable even when global markets spike. In American media, Venezuela is a sanctions story. In Chinese media, it's a spreadsheet. To see what's really happening, you have to track the tankers. How the barrels disappear and reappear in China. To get Venezuelan oil into Chinese refineries despite sanctions, traders and ship owners lean on just a few powerful tricks. Here's the simple version. First, turn off tracking. Second, swap cargo mid-ocean. Third, change the label. By the time it hits China, the story is clean. Every big tanker has a tracking signal called AIS, basically Find My iPhone for ships. In this trade, some tankers clearly load near Venezuela and then flip to airplane mode once they're at sea. Reuters has traced very large crude carriers that disappear after leaving Venezuelan waters, then reappear days later near Asia, making the trail much harder to verify. On the map, it looks like this. A dot near Venezuela, nothing, then a dot near China. For the crew, it's just another line in the voyage instructions. For sanctions enforcement, it's like trying to catch a speeding car after someone turned off all the traffic cameras. And somewhere in China, a refinery engineer just sees a new shipment on his screen. A heavy blend arriving right on time. Sometimes the tankers don't go straight from Venezuela to Asia. Two ships meet in open water. Oil is pumped from the first to the second, a ship-to-ship transfer. If one or both ships turn off AIS or broadcast confusing coordinates, it becomes very hard to prove that the second ship's cargo came from Venezuela. On paper, that second tanker can claim it loaded somewhere else with a harmless blend. Imagine two trucks meeting at 3 a.m. in an empty parking lot, moving boxes from one to the other. The second truck then drives into the city with clean paperwork and a normal delivery. That's the ocean version. By the time that second tanker shows up near a Chinese port, the story of where the oil started has already been blurred. The final touch is often just words. Investigations have found Venezuelan crude described as bitumen blend or folded into vague, heavy categories in import data. Behind those labels are chains of trading firms and shell companies that can be shut down, renamed, and reopened somewhere else. The barrel is the same, only the paperwork changes. For the private refinery in Shandong, what matters is simple. It's heavy, it's discounted, and it keeps the tanks full. From his office window, a manager looks out at rows of storage tanks and jokes with colleagues about another special blend shipment that gives them slightly better margins. He doesn't need to say Venezuela. The system is designed so he never has to. The price of sanctions. Sanctions don't just change where oil flows, they change the price. A sanctioned seller has weaker bargaining power. To convince buyers and middlemen to take on the legal and reputational risk, they offer discounts. Reuters has reported Venezuelan grades sold to China-linked buyers at clear discounts compared to similar non-sanctioned oil. For Venezuela, that means less money per barrel. For China, it can be a bargain. If you're in the US, you can feel this indirectly through global supply and price swings. $3 a gallon one month, $5 the next, with commentators blaming global supply shocks. In China, the impact is more controlled. These discounted barrels help keep refinery costs lower, support factory output, and give Beijing a bit more room to manage domestic fuel prices. All of it depends on this quiet system of dark tankers, ship-to-ship transfers, and renamed cargoes working in the background. Why this trade matters and outro. This Venezuela, China, US triangle serves very different purposes. For Venezuela, it's a financial lifeline. For China, it's energy security and bargaining power outside Washington's rules. For the United States, it's a test of how far financial pressure can really reach when other big economies choose to keep buying. OFAC can scare companies and raise costs. But as long as there are buyers willing to operate in the gray zone, the oil doesn't disappear. It just moves in more complicated, harder to see ways. For ordinary people, it shows up as a Venezuelan port worker counting pay in a collapsing economy, a Chinese refinery engineer whose bonus depends on running heavy crude smoothly through old equipment, an American commuter wondering why gas just jumped 80 cents overnight. All of them are tied together by a system none of them control. From an office in Washington, someone at OFAC updates a sanctions list. From a control room in coastal China, an engineer watches discounted crude flow through a maze of pipes. And somewhere in between, a tanker goes dark on the map, meets another ship in the middle of the ocean, and reappears a few 100,000 barrels lighter. But what do I know? I'm just a panda. For more real stories from inside China and how global power games touch ordinary lives here, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still thinks sanctions just mean no more oil.